Welcome back to the TowerCast podcast, the towering podcast for the towering filmmaker. Thank you for listening in. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or if you're checking out the video element, thank you for tuning in on YouTube and Facebook pages for Tower Productions. We appreciate you being here, fellow filmmakers. We have a very, very, very special guest today. But before I share who our special guest is, I want to introduce my co-host, my panel, as per usual. We have the fabulous John Eric Castro, my co-host.
How you guys doing, film people out there? Let's have some fun.
He's going to be offering this acting perspective for the show, as per usual. We have Mr. Michael DeLao as well.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back.
Michael DeLao, as you all know, cinematographer extraordinaire. We have another cinematographer, which is very cool, joining us. You know Michael Head as part of being one of the execs for Tower, but also a very talented writer, director, and cinematographer as himself.
Hello. Glad to be back.
We have Austin Young, making sure we're sounding great in the background there, our trusty producer.
Yo. Yo.
Okay.
And on today's TowerCast podcast, we have the very talented, very amazing, man, to say he has an amazing body of work is an understatement.
Go down the list, man. Just go down the list.
He's been working in this industry for a long time, and with the Rolodex and credits that comes with as well, So we're talking about films like Into the Blue, Terminator Salvation, Drumline, Into the Badlands, The Babysitter. Most recently, he's done films like Rim of the World, Holidate, Safety, and a couple other films in development that we're going to be talking about. But 2020, he has 2 films out as a cinematographer in 2020 on 2 very, very successful streaming platforms. We have the very awesome Shane Hurlbut today. Thank you so much for joining us, Shane. How you doing?
Yeah, thank you. Great to see all of you, and great to be here. I'm ready to have some fun and talk cinematography.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, Shane was kind enough. Shane is very interactive with his followers and people who are just seeking advice as filmmakers, indie filmmakers, and he's also the founder of the Hurlbut Academy, which has been a big teacher for us as indie filmmakers, especially Michael, both Michaels under the cinematography realm. He's very, very great to talk to. He goes on social media. He talks to people. He said ask him questions and he answers them. So we're very lucky to have him on. Shane, we always like to kick off the podcast with asking you, how did your journey in filmmaking start?
Oh yeah, this is a good one. So
Fire start burning.
Yeah, so I wasn't sure what the hell I wanted to do. I used to do the morning announcements for our high school.
Oh, you do have the voice.
And based on doing these morning announcements, everyone's like, dude, you got a really good voice. You should go into radio. And I was a DJ at all the high school dances. And then we fired up an air band back in the 80s, and we traveled all over New York State. We played, our biggest venue was 9,000 Girl Scouts in the
That's when you knew you made it. You should have stopped at the top.
But yeah, it was so much fun. We were traveling around. Our band was called the Imposters. So I did that for a while, and my parents were so cool in regards to, they're like, hey, we've saved money to send you to college, so you don't have to worry about paying for it, but we want to just make sure that you're going to do something you really want to and do and believe in, right?
Sure.
I was like, all right, I'm not sure I know what I want to do. So I went to a small little community college to figure it out, because I didn't want to waste my parents' money on a big gun university film school.
Sure.
Of course.
That was going to cost them, $20,000 a year back then in 1986. Well, 82, I guess, at the time when I graduated. But so I went to a small school. It's only like $3,000 a year. And the first year was radio. And I totally fell in love with radio. Then the second year was television. And I absolutely loved television.
Yep.
And then after that, I went home to my hometown, Aurora, New York, very near Ithaca, New York, which was the birthplace of Hollywood. So I was only literally 15 miles from where Hollywood started. It all started in Ithaca, New York. So that whole scenario was, I went back, my friend who was going to USC film school was doing a short film, his like practicum project.
Right.
And I just, the minute I walked on that set and he let me, you know, be a PA, be an electrician, be a grip, whatever it was, I fell in love with film. And after I graduated from Herkimer County Community College, I then got a full scholarship to go wherever I wanted. I graduated top of my class, so I went to Emerson College. And the main reason I went to Boston was not because it had a good film program, it's because I was chasing my wife. I was going after Lydia. I was like, just get me into the best film school in Boston is all I told my counselor, because that's where Lydia had gone.
That's what love does to you.
So I my whole path to cinematography was chasing a woman.
There you go. Isn't it for everybody? Isn't that all of us? Isn't that all of us? Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. So you grew up in New York. You're kind of in the, I mean, one of the major cornerstones of art in America, as you say. You know, Thomas Edison, kind of that whole introduction of filmmaking in the States.
Yeah.
So you get attracted to radio, you get attracted to cinema. What's your kind of game plan at that point? You fall in love with cinema. You think, I'm going to go and grip on more professional sets. Or I'm going to go get an agent or that type of deal. What was kind of your mindset?
After I graduated, sorry, choking up. After I graduated from Emerson, you know, I thought I was going to, you know, I got my big 4-year degree as a filmmaker, and I'm going to just pound the pavement and immediately become this exceptional filmmaker. So I was, you know, my mom bought me a 3-piece suit, and I started walking to all the different production companies, knocking on the doors, saying, "Hey, I'd like to get a job," and just boom, slam, slam, slam. You know,
in New York still, or
no, this is in Boston.
In Boston.
Yeah. So then after, you know, the 20th door was slammed in my face, I was like, you know what? I'm going to try this whole rental house thing. So I went back to where I had interned while at Emerson to a rental house called Film Arts. Doesn't exist anymore in Boston. But that's where I got my love for gripping and lighting and you know, I didn't know I wanted to be a cinematographer at this point. I just was, I grew up on a farm as well. So we had a 300-acre farm, and I was constantly, you know, plowing fields, dragging fields, harvesting wheat, corn, you know, so I had a
So carrying C-stand seemed like a walk in the park, right?
Yeah. I had a big common sense side to me where I knew how to work a screw gun. I knew how to work a hammer, a welder, a blowtorch, whatever it was. I could fabricate something. So coming in with that experience, I immediately fell into being a grip. And I drove across country because once I started to really rise in Boston, I realized that the only way I was going to continue to rise is if the person ahead of me died. So it was going to be a very slow process in Boston because, and you know, I didn't want to be committing a homicide so I could move along. So I thought, what the heck? Let's head to Los Angeles. So Lydia, who was my fiance at the time, we packed up our Ford Ranger pickup truck and a U-Haul and a Honda scooter, and we headed west. And I started right back at the bottom again. I got a job at a rental house called Keylight, which doesn't exist anymore. Hollywood Rentals bought them, and then Hollywood Rentals was bought by MBS. So now MBS is, you know, the structure, the rental house that
parent company,
performer of everything. But I again started, packing grip trucks and packing shelves and doing all that stuff. And then a producer asked, me if I wanted to drive truck on his feature film. And I said, I would love to. And he goes, well, that means you have to leave the rental house. And I was like, well, sure, I'm out of here. Yeah. So I had only been there 3 months, and I got a job on the movie Phantasm 2. This summer, the ball is back.
Wow.
So I did this. I was a grip truck driver on Phantasm 2. And then there was in my life, I have all these kind of light bulbs, these moments that really change my path. Sure. And we were shooting in this bizarre warehouse in Chatsworth. And we had built this crematorium set. And I was on the truck, and all of a sudden, Terry Wimmer, the key grip, calls me and goes, Shane, I need 18 by 24 stat. So I, grabbed the flag and started racing it into the complex. And I was walking down the stairs into the crematorium set. And the Best Boy Electric stopped me on the stairs. And he goes, Shane, would you be scared? And I go, Brian, what the hell are you talking about?
He goes,
look, every nook and cranny is lit on this set. There's no shadow. And it was like, pang. At that point, everything I looked at was light. And I went from a grip truck driver to a cinematographer in 3 years.
Wow.
And shot my first music video in 1991 for this band called Helmet, Unsung. And then it was just off to the races after that.
I find that very interesting, kind of just your ability to have the courage to just jump into stuff like that. I got to ask, is your wife of creative as well? She was very supportive of this and on the practical side, or?
Well, the cool thing is my wife and I have been dating since 9th grade, and we we actually were played together as little kids since 3 years old.
Oh, wow.
So this is, it's
lifetime
it was a
sweethearts.
relationship where we formed the mate that we wanted to be with, right? Because growing up that young, you can actually shape each other.
Oh,
and she knew my love of the industry. She was all on board. She was a nurse, and which enabled us to move out to LA because they set her up with a full ride and
work anywhere. She could work
stipend for, an apartment and all that stuff. So that enabled me to take the time to really find myself. And, I think back to those times when, we would go into the market and we were counting our quarters from the machine and, from the laundry machine because we ran out of money and we had to start putting stuff back. And I think about the times where my bedside table was a milk crate. This is how we all started out, we were scraping and bearing, and I was making $3.50 an hour at Keylight when I started out.
Wow.
I mean, I find it interesting on the personal level because I just got married back in October, and my wife is very much an intellectual and loves academia, and I'm in the arts and I love cinema and being a filmmaker, and we both support each other naturally, but we're on the same boat, kind of living in a small place, just saving up and figuring it all out. So I find that very interesting that you had the courage. And kind of like you say, your wife's confidence as well enabled you to say, you know what, I'm going to find myself. I'm going to jump into this industry.
I feel like that's a film I want to see. Have you ever thought about writing? Have all these
they say opposites attract, right? And she is very clinical, very scientific.
Right.
She has a great creative side as well, but she's much more into systems and all that stuff. Sure. And I, as a creative,
are playing with lights and colors in the background.
Right? As a creative, a lot of creatives aren't very organized, but because we grew up together and shaped each other, I'm very organized and very creative. So it's like I'm all about systematizing and prep. My prep, outline of how I prep a movie is like legendary.
I want to get to that. I gotta ask you, Shane. So in the we're talking about the 90s, and TV movies being what they were. Some of the best TV movies kind of came out of the 90s. One of which we're a part of. In my personal opinion, I have a soft spot for this subject matter in general. You were the cinematographer for the Rat Pack. Starring Ray Liotta, Don Cheadle. I mean, just a great cast.
The cast was incredible.
Oh my
Ray
God.
Liotta's coming fresh off of Goodfellas to a certain degree, so he had some heat. And Shane, forgive me if I overspeak about Martin Scorsese. He's my cinematic hero. So I'm crazy about it. But just Goodfellas and the Ray Liotta connection there. But I love Frank Sinatra, and I love that era of history and music history. You were the cinematographer on this film. What was that like? That was one of your first films, and very popular to this day.
Yeah, that was my first film. Rob Cohen, a director, he directed that. And that was the stars aligning for sure. There was a lot of... HBO didn't know much about me. I'd never really shot any narrative. I had just done a TV pilot with Rob the year before. So HBO was like, who is this Shane Hurlbut guy? He's only shot music videos and commercials. How is he going to know how to light 5 or 6 people in a room? And I'm like, well, what's a band? It's like... And how do we know he's going to like women? Oh, I studied under Herb Ritz for 6 years as his main lighting guy. So once I started to peel the onion back of my experience and where it was, that interview was very funny because I thought I was interviewing, the head of production at HBO. And when I went into the room, there were 6 people there. And it was just rapid fire, just asking me all these questions, how I was going to handle this, how I was going to do that, and all this stuff. And at the end, I basically, told them, I said, hey, I'm just telling you that this is my vision for the movie. And I splayed it out that I wanted the film to feel like, the Rat Pack was this amazing group of individuals and their whole life was on stage, whether they were on stage or off stage. So I thought, what if we take this Hurrell approach where we light them in a very high key scenario where even when they're off stage, they have the perfect key light, the perfect kick light, the perfect fill light, the backlight, everything. So it's just glamour on top of glamour. And I said, I'm coming from commercials, which we have a lot more money sometimes for, 30 seconds than you have on a made for TV movie. So I was like, I'm going to be bringing all my contacts with me, all my vendors, and they're going to, really support me because this is my coming out party, right? I'm going to be bringing that. And I said, it's a win-win. If you don't want to hire me, then it's fine. I go back and my daughter is being born, and I'll be able to spend wonderful time with her and spend that incredible time when she's first a baby and everything. Or you hire me and we rock this thing out.
Don't you love that both of those are on the same table? Just like spending time with my newborn or doing a film. Like,
But that's the beauty of, that's why I speak of your courage a little more because, and by the way, for those of you that don't know, Rob Cohen, you'll know him as, he's directed some big pictures like the Fast and the Furious, kind of kicking off that franchise, and Triple X, and a bunch of really and he's been a producer on many more, but this is the courage I speak of, where you said, I'm going to launch into this. This is my meeting with the panel of HBO, and I'm going to tell it straight how it is. And I feel like that's the confidence that, yes, as artists, we want to maintain some humility and we want to say that I haven't done much. But when you say I've done this and I know how to do this, that confidence presents something in you that says, oh, you know what, this kid or this guy, he's got it. I like him for this job. I think that confidence and that courage that you display, Shane, must have kicked off your career in a way that a lot of us.
Well, you have to be fearless to do this. You really do, because there's so many times where you just have to take risks. And this was a big risk for HBO because they didn't know much about me.
Sure.
And it was a big risk for me because I had to deliver. And because this was such a important project for HBO, they actually hired another cinematographer and a whole other team that was on hold for 1 week waiting for me to fail.
That is
wow.
pressure on top of pressure.
Now, did Rob choose you specifically? Was Rob saying, "I want Shane as my DP"?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and Rob never told me that till the end of the movie.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my
God.
Right? Because think about, that's like a confidence destroyer right there.
Sure. Absolutely.
Right? But the cool thing is they wanted to test me out. So Rob, unbeknownst to me, he had 2 pre-shoot days. So we went in and we went at 2 locations, and there's some of the coolest shots in the movie. There's a shot where Dean Martin is at his piano and his wife walks into like this grand living room, and the sun is just shafting through these windows and everything. And then we turned around and then we shot Dean Martin with this really cool, it was like a pop-up cigarette holder, and he, pops it out, and I lit it with this searing hot light, and I mean, it looks so cool. And we went with Fagal nets on the Panavision Primo Primes.
Oh.
And what ends up happening is, so I shot these 2 days. The HBO came back and they're like, "Where the hell did you find this guy? This is some of the greatest stuff that I've ever seen." And then it was like, "We've discovered Shane Hurlbut." And then I started shooting HBO. After that, it was awesome. Wow. And it was such a great relationship. All the creatives at HBO, I just loved them to death. And we were like bonded for a while. And then I started blasting off and doing a lot more features.
How did that
we live for?
Sorry, go ahead, Dalal, go ahead.
Okay. No, I was going to say that, with the profession of cinematography, director of photography, communicating vision and all that, is that another challenge that you're choosing a profession that you can't almost write on paper, like, these are my skills and assets, like, just pick me from there? Like, it's that whole idea of it being a creative field, understanding lighting, trying to convey to them that you understand the story enough that only you can tell it in a certain way. Is that hard to communicate, especially like these companies?
That's the most difficult job we have as cinematographers, is communicating the vision. Mm-hmm. And I've tried to do as many systems in place to be able to do that, and kind of uniting a team, so we're all making one movie instead of everyone making their own. And when I come into an interview, I come in with guns blazing. It's like I don't ask the director, okay, what do you do? What do you like? What do you want? I come in with a point of view. And I've always been very, straightforward with that, because you got to throw your best shot out. And because you're interviewing the director just as much as they're interviewing you, and you want to see if it's going to be a collaboration. Yeah. So if you come in with a point of view, because most of the time directors are going to say, so what do you think of the project? How are you, they're going to always ask you that.
Right.
And I'm very bold with that. I tell them how their movie's going to look. I'll never forget the interview I had for Greatest Game Ever Played. I went into Disney, and I walk in, and Bill Paxton is the director. What an amazing man. I'm so sad that his life was cut short. He was just absolutely a gentleman and amazing actor, but I thought even a better director. And he was just a wonderful man. And so I walk in, and at this point, there was not a lot of reference and resources of Google and all the stuff that you could grab, screen grabs. So I had my reference library, which I have, all up here. I got something like 400 some books.
Can I borrow that real quick?
You can see them out there, and there's like a ton more back behind me. So everything was reference books. So I would come in with my camera bag, that used to transport mags and film, that canvas bag, and it would be chock full of reference books. So I could be as,
ready
to communicate that vision as best as possible, because a picture is worth 1,000 words.
Oh, yeah.
And you were talking about Bill Paxton. How's the director of photography's relationship start with the actor? Like, how does that conversation start, or do you just slow?
Well, he wasn't acting in it. He was the director.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah. So, but the big telltale of it is going in and having everything prepared, and I had post-it notes on it. One was post-it note color was composition, green, yellow was color, mood and tone, and all these things. So I sat down, and he's like, "So Shane, what do you think this movie should look like? What are you thinking with this?" And I pulled out this one book, and I said, "Bill, this is what this movie should look like." And I put it right down on the table for him. And it was Bound for Glory. And he goes, "Oh, really?" And I go, "Oh, shit." And he turns around and he grabs a book and he puts it down right on top of mine. And he goes, "This is what the movie's going to look like." And it was Bound for Glory. Wow. It was awesome. We had the greatest conversation. Then I walked out, got in my car, and I was driving back to my house in Pasadena, and I get a call, and it's an 805 number. And I go, "Hello?" And he goes, "This is Bill Paxton. And Shane, I'd like you to shoot Greatest Game Ever Played." And I was like, "Oh, yeah."
I think it's amazing. I do want to ask how that snowball also came to be, because you before The Greatest Game Ever Played, you did a couple films, things like Drumline and Into the Blue, and you've actually worked a couple of times with the late great Paul Walker, who obviously had a lot of talent. And Into the Blue I thought was particularly very interesting, and Drumline as well, both fantastic pictures. But even Into the Blue got a very kind of stellar review on your work specifically from the late great Roger Ebert. I mean, the best film critic maybe to ever live, thus far, anyways. So what was that experience like? Your work is now being highlighted in massive, commentary.
Yeah, I mean, it was every time I go into a project, it's one thing my mentors always told me: never get comfortable, ever. And every project I go into, it's like I've never done anything before. It's I want to try everything new and try to reinvent the wheel, let's say. Yeah. And on Into the Blue, that was the time where digital was starting to push, right? Sure. So the Sony F950 was the big camera at that point. It was an upgrade from the 900, and it was with MGM and Sony, and they really wanted to push that camera on me.
Okay.
And specifically, so much so that they flew me all the way up to Montana to meet with the late great God, what was his name? He did The Abyss. He was the underwater cinematographer on The Abyss. Oh God.
Let's see, Mikel Solomon or
no. He was the cinematographer, but the underwater.
Oh, okay. I see.
I can't remember what his name was, but I went up to his place. I saw all his gear, all his underwater housings. We had all these conversations and everything. I wanted to shoot film underwater. He wanted to shoot video. So I said, you know what? I said, let's have a shootout. I said, let's go down to the Bahamas. for 3 days, and I will have Pete Zuccherini, which is my guy who I absolutely love. He's my commercial guy that I had used on a lot of underwater stuff. He had never done a feature film. And I said, I'm going to have Pete Zuccherini go with his camera system and film. And then you come down with your whole team. We'll give you matching. Everyone had the same. We had the same male and female divers, same outfits, same everything.
Right.
And he took his team and he shot it the way he wanted to shoot it. And then I coached Pete Zuccherini on how I wanted him to shoot it.
Right.
And we had this massive shootout. So for 3 days, and it was unbelievable. We went down to the Bahamas. We're on this boat, and I'm telling you, I have never seen conditions like this in my life. It was glass for 3 days, not a trickle of a wave. You could see 98 feet viz. The viz was 98 feet. So we went to all these, wrecked ships that were under there so we could get some really cool stuff with flashlights and everything. And then we processed it all. I went and took it all into telecine, did all the telecine on it. And then we took it to MGM and we sat in a theater with all the execs and they watched it. And I'll remember to this day, I was sitting next to Peter Goober. Oh, it was Al Giddings. Al Giddings was the cinematographer. And Al was next to Peter and I was next to Peter as well. We were like, bookending him.
Yeah.
And then John Stockwell was right next to him as well. Sure. And Peter Goober goes, "What is that?" And I said, "Peter, that's film." He goes, "That's what I want. They look alive. They look the vitality. That's what we're shooting." And I kind of looked over and I just saw Al Giddings' face just drop.
I think that's fascinating.
This was the time. These are the kind of decisions you need to make as a cinematographer. You gotta go with your instincts and you gotta be bold with them as well and jump in head first. And with that, I told them, I said, you got to shoot the way you want to shoot underwater. And, Al went down, he took his fins off, sat on the bottom and panned the camera. And I was like, dude, we're in a liquid environment. We can be a techno crane, a helicopter, a dolly, a Steadicam, all in one shot. That's what Roger Ebert really responded to. He was like, he's never seen a camera move the way that the camera moved in that movie. It was alive. It was different. And all the underwater, I lit from never going underwater.
Wow.
So what I would do is the vis level was so good there, I could see exactly where Pete Zuccherini was, and I lit everything from above. Mm-hmm. And I could just say, okay, this is going to be my side light. Okay, I'll add a little backlight over there. I just basically did like a bird's eye point of view because I had a problem, inner ear issue where, I did the whole, I got certified and everything, but for me to get down took 35 minutes. And then I had like 10 minutes of air left. Right. Or I blew my eardrum out on like the second week when I was down there because I went down too fast and blew the damn thing out.
Too excited,
Dang.
Are you still a champion of celluloid, Shane? Like, is that now that you have the choice, there's been an advancement of digital, obviously, substantially, but are you still a champion of celluloid?
I love shooting film for sure. I mean, the last time I shot it though was 2011, so it's been a heck of a long time. I mean, that's 10 years, but there's something that seems much easier with the filmmaking process, but you have to be much more disciplined like we used to be. We couldn't just let the camera roll forever and we couldn't just go back to one real quick and all the things that have become very accustomed with the digital style. Sure. But it's all good. I mean, I think that now where the digital cameras are at, all the cameras are so close. There used to be a very wide gap. You know, you had to, even in 2012, you had to pick the camera as a digital, it was like a digital emulsion. But now the cameras are so close, it really doesn't matter which one you're shooting with. It now becomes the lens is more of the soul of the project.
I think it's interesting though, because from your Hurlbut Academy and what you've posted as far as picking your camera and picking your equipment, I like that you emphasize how the location and the way you're shooting and the story will kind of present itself as far as what you should be picking and what equipment you should be using, as opposed to just there being this single camera that's going to kind of be the all-in-one, you know? Like I was seeing some behind the scenes where you used, I don't know if it was the 6K or the 4K Blackmagic for safety on the helmet. And yeah. I was thinking, while looking at the shots, I was thinking, you probably use like a GoPro or something like that, just something that you can kind of toss around. But you strapped on this guy's face the nice little 6K camera and had him roll around. But it got the shot done. It got it done the way you probably wanted it and it envisioned it. So, I mean... It was the right tool for the right
more cinematic. You know, the GoPros are hard to make cinematic. Their view is very distorted, and you got to try to bend it in and everything. But it's it's plastic glass, so it just doesn't have that character that you get when you're putting a true lens on a camera.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. We made a joke, Shane, that you're kind of. Whatever Z camera for on this helmet is our A camera right now. That's what we shoot on is our Blackmagic 6K. It's like our prized possession right now because it's the newest camera we've got, and we love it. By the way, we love how it's shot. But obviously, on an economical standpoint, also it's for indie filmmakers. That's what we're using right now. So we made a joke that's your Z cam and that's our A cam. Man. What are we gonna do?
Well, it's funny because on Need for Speed, the GoPros, we had so many cameras. We had 50 plus cameras, so we had to go through the alphabet 3 times. So we had even ZZZ cameras.
Oh my God. Now, I think it's fascinating that in the Hurlbut Academy, we get to see a lot of the behind the scenes and you go into dire detail of what you're doing. I think it's fascinating to piggyback off what Michael was saying, that you are... There's cinematographers, just like directors, just like writers, just like actors. Everybody has a different process. In your particular process, and correct me if I'm wrong here, you see everything as a tool, as it should be, and it's kind of like your array of tools. What tool am I going to use to tell this story and the vision that I have for it? As opposed to other cinematographers or other camera departments who just see, I'm going to shoot on the RE because it's an RE and that's that. And that's not necessarily always the case. You have to lend it to the storytelling. Can you speak a little bit about that and your vision?
Yeah, I mean, I think it has a lot to do with my upbringing because, I started out as a farm boy. And on the farm, we had to do a lot of stuff. Our family was not rich by any means. If anything, we were lower middle class. And, there a lot of times stuff would break and we had to weld stuff and take pieces and parts of other, dilapidated vehicles in the back and make things of them. Christ, I remember taking road signs and like from Century 21 and Prudential that had been falling over in the ditches and grabbing those, and they were aluminum, and they would fix our trucks and tractors. Just spot weld those sons of bitches on there, and you're off to the races.
So you were an indie filmmaker before you knew you were an indie filmmaker.
Exactly. And Christ, Act of Valor, a lot of that was popsicle sticks and gaffer's tape, how we did that thing. I mean, most of the movie was made with 10 people. That's it.
Wow.
All the big action sequences you see were just 10 people shooting that stuff. Wow. So, it's like having that ingenuity to kind of take and make something out of nothing is kind of my roots. So I always love, to see where the market goes, and there's a lot of prosumer or consumer stuff that I really gravitate towards. Like when the movie came out, I mean that was a consumer device. That was not a professional cinema device by any means. A professional cinema device would be like the Trinity, which is $35,000, right? This was like $7,000, and now the Movie Pro's down to $3,000 or whatever now. Some ridiculous price. So this stuff, it's like it's taking something that's consumer and turning it into something that can make movies really well. And so I was like, all right, let's take this movie. All right, how can I operate it? What do you mean, this majestic shit? I'm not going to operate the damn thing like that. I'm going to orchestrate this thing to the wheels. So then I hired a guy at Hot Gears to do an analog digital conversion, and that became the first wheels for the movie. And then once that happened, the gimbal exploded. Like, everyone realized, oh my God, I got a remote head right here for $7,000, and the thing rents for $350 a day. Or I could go get a Libra head for $5,000, and then the technician that comes along with it is $850, and all this stuff starts to escalate. So I started to use these tools that tell a story really well, but just need to be manicured and innovation to take it to the next level, to kind of make it more professional. It's like the Canon 5D when I started shooting with that thing. That was not a video camera by any means. It's a damn still camera. Well, how can I go in there and hack the damn thing in ways to turn it into a cinematic movie-making machine? And that's what I did on Act of Valor.
I think that cinematographers, and I'm taking this quote from one of my favorite documentaries, which is the Side by Side, and kind of the study of digital versus celluloid. And I think cinematographers, not only do you have to be a visionary, but you also have to be an engineer.
Exactly.
And you have to,
well, it's like, if you look, because I'm an Academy member as well, and that's art and science, right? So, it was art here and science when we were shooting film. And then as digital came up, the thing was like, and then, sometimes it's going this way. And that art and science is a very delicate balance. And you have to really, I look at it on every level of how emotionally can I take the camera system, and how can that take the performance of the actors and the story higher. When I shot Fathers and Daughters, which was with Russell Crowe and Amanda Seyfried and Aaron Paul, the movie had never been used on any feature film. This was the first film that a gimbal had ever been used on. So there was no slingshot, there was no ready rig, there was nothing. It was literally just us holding that damn thing for 3, 4, 5 minutes. We had guns of steel trying to hold that damn thing. Right? We even, got these bodybuilder, flow things so we could hold it in there. The ones that like the curl bar thing, so we could just be as stable as possible. But I said, okay, because the system is not going to be so stable, how can I then take that tool and turn it into something that's going to fit the camera emotion of our character? And Amanda Seyfried was somebody that she had no foundation as a character. Her foundation was sand. So I'm like, well, Jesus, we're trying to figure this movie system out. The wheels had almost a half-second delay, so you had to stop tilting before you had to stop tilting, and you had to start to tilt before you tilted.
Oh, my God.
Right?
Oh, wow.
So imagine that, delay. I mean, as it is, following somebody, moving like this is very difficult on the wheels. Right. So imagine if you had to think before the actor actually thought, and stop before the actor actually stopped. So there was a lot of the movement was kind of not as precise.
Right.
So I knew that going in with all the testing and everything that we did. I set my team up for success, saying, okay, guys, if we don't hit it right, it's okay, because this is the camera emotion that I want to convey as Amanda Seyfried's character. She is on sand. So when you started to see it and how the camera moved and how it felt, that's what was the power of taking tools and turning them into a positive instead of a negative,
So
but you have to know the science to be able to then take it and turn it into art. Because if you don't know the tools and what the tools do, then how are you going to take your art any higher? There's a lot of cinematographers out there that say, Shane, you're all technical. That's all you know about, blah, 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 all that stuff. I anytime that there's anything technical, I pass it off to you. But in reality, it's like tech is something that just like when I was, shooting film, I knew how to load a mag. I knew how to pull focus. I knew how to set up lights. I knew how to set C-stands. Christ, I could run the own smoke machine if I needed to. Dress the damn set. I'm a filmmaker, right? We do it all. Right. That's what makes a well-rounded cinematographer. So I get into the tech as well. I mean, trust me, I don't like going into the red menu systems, the sub menu systems, and the sub on top of the sub on top of the sub on top of the sub. But I need to know it. So if I'm in a Condor getting a shot and I need to change the shit, it's not on somebody else. It's
and that was actually my next question in regards to that, Shane. What is your take on companies like Red, like Blackmagic, when you have cameras like the Komodo and you have cameras like the 4K and the 6K and you have Sony? Sony's always been a staple, but you have Sony releasing things like the A7S Mark III, Canon C70s. What's your take on those quote unquote consumer cameras, but that are still kind of a little more streamlined in the industry now as cine cameras? What's your take on those companies and those cameras? Are they doing something good for cinema, or are they doing something bad for cinema?
I think they're disruptive, and I love that shit. That's why I threw it down with the Canon. I'll never forget the day where I walked in to the ASC and I said, I'm going to shoot a movie on this. And they all thought I had lost my fucking mind. I mean, it was unbelievable. They literally thought I had lost my mind. They were like, what are you talking about? And I said, this thing is unbelievable, and these are the kind of things that, you just gotta forge your own path. You got to believe in, yourself. You have to be humble, but confident. You have to be, strong in regards to, keeping the vision in check and everything. And I love these, prosumer cameras. I think they were the greatest shakeup in this industry. And I'll never forget, I was at some venue. I think it was like 4,000 or 5,000 people. I was doing a big talk, and I said, it's going to be the day when the only thing that is the largest thing that we hold is going to be the lens. The camera itself is going to be this square little box that just snaps into the PL mount. And what do we have? The Komodo. Just 10 years later, that thing is literally that small box. And even the Red Gemini and the Monstro, I mean, these things are super computers. That camera is so versatile. And what I love about the whole Red ecosystem is it's much more photochemical for me, because that's what I loved, starting out as a young cinematographer and, processing my own Super 8 film stock and everything. I mean, Smashing Pumpkins, I processed the whole thing in my bathtub. I shot it on Super 8 and then sat there and processed it all and slowed down to overexpose it and sped up to underexpose it.
I think David Fincher was the one that said that the Red, what he loves about the Red is that it's sending the film camera to the retirement home, and I can feel good about it. It's the first cinematic camera the digital camera that I feel confident about, because it feels so much like photochemical if it has kind of the ability to shoot that way. Wow.
The Arri is Procter and Gamble. You pull it out and you turn it on and it's going to work for sure. But there's not anything you can do in that camera that will affect the RAW. It just pumps it out.
Sure.
You can't change the OLPFs. You can't change anything within it. You can't change color science. You can't change anything. With the red, I can change my color science. I can change my OLPFs. I got a full-on HDRX function. I got everything. It's like you all of a sudden you become photochemical within a camera that I can bake it in. And that's what in film, everything was baking it in. When you see my film negatives, it's like it's there, it's baked in. The director's like, hey, can we open up the shadows? No, dude, we said silhouette.
Shane, I have to tell you, the last kind of your most recent films, I really want to talk about that. I don't want to run out of time here. Your last few films, we actually screened The Babysitter last night, which we thought was fantastic. Not only is it a fun film, and it's directed very well for what it's trying to be, this fun B slasher 80s type of style, but it looks amazing. It looks fantastic, the film. And I'm more of a drama kind of comedy guy, so when I see these pictures, and I'm intrigued. It fascinates me. And the number one thing I said was like, this is a good looking film. I mean, the fog and the night scenes. We were talking to Michael Delau and I were talking about the moonlight and it just looked fantastic. Can you talk a little bit about The Babysitter to kind of start?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's funny because, I started in horror. That was my narrative push from a grip truck driver on Phantasm 2. And then I did Space Sluts and the Slammer. They're Bound and Determined. I did Memorial Day Massacre. They're not axing for trouble. They're just axing. I had all these great... Death Row Diner. But yeah, it was all these, B and C slasher movies. Yeah. And I love horror. I've always been a huge horror fan. So when I got a chance and when Mick G called up and said, hey, you want to do this low budget horror film? I was like, hell yeah. He goes, it's 4 weeks. I'm like, I'm in.
Nice.
Awesome.
And I wanted to...
Yeah, I'm sorry. Just as a director, I really want to ask. I mean, you talked a little bit about your experience with Bill Paxton, but you seem to have this very nice technical connection with McG. What's that about? You've worked on several films with him, and
oh yeah. So Mick G and I go way back to the days of like 1991 when I started doing all the Cypress Hill and Sugar Ray videos with him.
Wow.
Okay.
So we started doing a lot of music videos together, and then we kind of split off, and then we came back with he came to me with We Are Marshall. And we did that film, and then after that it was a huge success, and he loved the relationship, and then he hired me on Terminator Salvation, and then we were off to the races on that. And then it's like I love working for Mick G. He has we're like almost the same entity. We're very positive and passionate, and we just love what we do. And being on set is definitely, I can't believe we get paid to do what we do. It's just, I just love it. And, coming up with cool ideas, and I always tell him, Jesus, Mick G, this is a little over the top, and I don't believe it at all. And he's like, dude, it's a movie, and I'm like, all right, yeah, you're right.
Was that the case on The Babysitter? Because there's so many over the top.
There were a lot of extreme things in there. We're like, that's no way. It, like, Mick G is like, they come in, the guy shoots, what's her name, the cheerleader,
Bella Thorne. Thorne.
Right?
Yeah,
shooting somebody with a shotgun would just, knock him down. And then that damn thing, he shoots her, and she flies 90 feet across the wall.
Doesn't weigh that much.
It's like Tarantino style.
Yeah. Something that I've always appreciated about your work is the visual storytelling that you incorporate so much. You can just watch your movies and you can tell much of the story just from watching the visuals, even with the sound off. How much of that is you coming to the director and saying, hey, I really think you should do this? And how much of it is the director saying, how are we going to tell this? Or the director coming to you and saying, can we do this? What's that collaboration like?
Yeah, that collaboration, it all depends on the directors. Some directors are much more actor focused. So they put a lot of the weight on me to deliver the visuals. And then like Mick G and I, we're like 50-50. It's like actors and visual. And, you know, we work very closely with that. He has a storyboard artist, Adolfo Perez, that helps him a lot visualize what he tries, that he wants to convey with me. And then I take it and try to get inside his head and formulate a plan. Like, you know, when we did Rim of the World, he came to me and he goes, Shane, I want this movie to be a coffee table book. I want a person to open it up and they have this tone. And then when the aliens invade, it's this tone. When they go down the hill into the valley, it's this tone. When they go to JPL, it's this tone. So he wanted it like a coffee table book.
Sure.
And by doing it that way, just like you were saying, Michael, I'm telling the visual story because we're cross-cutting with a lot of stuff. You know, the progression of where these four kids are going, because you're seeing them coming, starting with the beautiful blue sky and the mountains, and then the aliens hit, and now it becomes forest fire, right? And then they move out of the 9,000 foot elevation down into the LA basin. So now that forest fire is a yellow sun with the green cyan undertones. So now you know they're in the Inland Empire and the valley and heading to JPL. And then JPL has a whole different tone of you know, purple magenta moonlight. You know, it's like that was the whole thing. I go, you know, if these aliens enter, everyone does aliens enter and everything stays the same. You know, that's what I've always seen on every movie. I'm like, well, what if all these goddamn ships are coming in and invading, maybe they change the atmosphere. So I thought, if they change the atmosphere, let's change the color. Right. So that was the purple magenta moonlight, the forest fire when they invaded, the muted tones when they got more in the elevation, so they weren't so close to space, right? And then that was kind of my reasoning, and it fit with you know, Mick G's vision of this coffee table book, where it felt like a graphic novel.
I think that's. Sorry, go ahead.
That was you got most of those colors on set, right? That wasn't really a post, or was that kind of a balance between getting it on set the way you wanted it and a little bit of
we did all the
grading?
tests. We did all these tests with all tobaccos and chocolates and everything. And what we found was, in post, I could do it more manipulative. And I could seek in on skin tones and keep them not so orange, and then change other things, where if the tobacco or chocolate was in there, it became an overall. And that's the one thing we didn't want. We didn't want it to feel like it was a color wash. There wanted to be all these different subtleties of colors within the wash.
Are you a fan of
difficult to do if you filter it?
Are you a fan of the DI process? Is that one of your favorite things? Is that one of your
I was pushing the DI process. Like, Into the Blue was at the forefront of like some of the first films ever mastered as a DI. And I knew I needed that DI to be able to dig into the underwater to push skin tones in below 25 feet. Because at 25 feet, you lose the red layer of light through the spectrum. So they were going down to 90 feet sometimes. So in that transition at 90 feet, I let them go cyan. But there was a lot of play that was in the 40 to 50 range, where in the Bahamas has this amazing shelf. It literally goes at 55 feet and then falls to 2,000. Wow. And you have this deep, deep blue tone. But I wanted to keep the skin tone at that depth. So I needed the DI process to be able to push that in. And that's what I think made that movie very unique, because so many pictures before, it just let it go real cyan. They all look like carcasses, you know, and corpses underwater.
It fascinates me. It fascinates me because when we're talking about the advancement of cinema and the advancement of cinema technology, digital provided the ability for you to advance in the DI process. And there's some cinematographers, to my knowledge, that say, let the colorists take care of it. I'll see the cut after it's done. And there's other cinematographers that sit there every day with the DI colorists and to the T, I want it to look like this. I want it to look like that. So I think it's a fascinating thing. And I think it's only going to get better, which is very interesting. I think that process, the post process, specifically with DI, is only going to get better with the digital, like you said, supercomputers that we have working for us, right?
Right. But the funny thing was, I came from music videos and commercials where there was telecine, right? Which was basically DI, right? So I had all the power of that coming up from music videos. So when I went to feature films, I'm like, Jesus, what's this photochemical shit? What do you mean I can't go in there and create a window and take in,
power window,
do this, power window that, and power window this? Yeah. They're like, no. You got magenta, cyan, and yellow. Have at it. I'm like, Jesus Christ, this is ridiculous.
A lot of it is instinct, Shane, as you say. A lot of it is intuition. I could definitely speak on that as a director. When I'm on set, it has to be from my gut feeling and so much prep. But in my personal opinion, just the way I personally and all these guys really love cinema and love cinematic history, love watching films. Is there anybody that inspired you or continues to inspire you that you reference back? I have to watch this movie every time I go into a feature film. What's who have been your inspirations, from directors to cinematographers, etc.? Who have been your inspirations or films?
Yeah, I mean, you nailed Martin Scorsese.
Yes.
You have Steven Spielberg. Paul Thomas Anderson is one of my favorite directors. I would love to work with that man. Gabriel Muccino, who I've done 2 movies with, I love working with him as well. I would say cinematography wise, Roger Deakins is,
of course,
the tip of the top for me. Then it would be probably Bob Richardson, Emmanuel Lubensky, the late Harris Savides. Harris Savides was one of my favorite cinematographers. I love the way he lit. Those guys.
Do you bump into these guys at any functions or any ASC events? You just bump into them and get to talk to them at all?
Of course. Yeah.
And are those conversations, part of the, is that something that you love to do with?
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. I shoot movies and I have a wonderful family that I like to come back to. I'm not necessarily in the Hollywood sector. I moved out to Thousand Oaks so my kids could go to public school. I didn't want to put them into private school. I wanted them to be around, special needs. I wanted them to be around people of color. I didn't want them to have this, lily white upbringing. So, that was something that was very important to me. Sure. So I've kind of stayed out of the Hollywood, sector that way. And so I get in for functions here and there, but most of the time, if I'm not shooting a movie or mentoring the 4,000 plus people in the Hurlbut Academy and all the people on Instagram and YouTube that ask me questions on a daily basis, I'm, you know what I'm saying?
I was gonna ask, just like with everything, I mean, it feels like once you kind of break a certain point that you're making films, you're a working cinematographer, meeting people's directors, bigger clients and talent. How do you kind of maintain that level where you have a very healthy, strong home life, and then you still have a very good relationship with being able to continue getting work and all that kind of stuff? Is that ever a challenge trying to balance those two?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that the balance comes on what your balance wants to be. If you want to be shooting the next greatest thing and get in there, you got to be in that Hollywood vein, and you got to be surfing all the the publications and everything, and trying to be getting into any of these things where you can get yourself in front of them. I'm not that person. I have my agents, and they're there for me to get me in front of people. I just, that way I can It's all about quality of life, not quantity.
Yeah.
I lived the quantity when I sacrificed a lot of my family in the beginning and my wife and everything to get to where I am right now. And now I'm like, everything is just, what is quality? Am I going to have fun? Am I going to have fun on this project? It's not always, oh my God, we're going to do a shootout and we're going to go to the Bahamas and we're going to do this and we're going to have a shootout. No. These are the things that I've built my career. That's my brick and mortar. That is Shane Hurlbut. But now at my career, it's like, I want to have fun. I don't want to, have it beat the
stress
crap
over
out of me on a daily basis. I want to have fun. I want to involve my kids. My daughter, Kira, she got a small bit part on Holidate, and it was so much fun. Her coming down to Atlanta and us being together. And it was awesome because she walked right into the set, that she was in, this bathroom set. And it's all the people that is surrounding me that she grew up with, and immediately she starts giving everyone shit. She's like, are you going to do anything today? And, she just starts firing off at him. And it was like, oh my God, this is exactly what I want for, where my career is going right now. I just love this. And that's where, Holidate and Safety. And I just finished Love Hard up in Vancouver in the middle of this pandemic. They're rom-coms that I'd never shot a rom-com before. And I was like, all right, let's try it, and it was so much fun because I think I have a very good comedic sense of timing and understand how to compose comedy.
Absolutely.
So that's a big part. And then I take my comedies, my rom-coms do not look like rom-coms. They look like dramas. You take Semi-Pro for an example. No one would ever say that is a comedy. It's funny, but it looks so vintage and
everybody love everybody.
I love everybody.
Now with Holidate and Safety, you've worked. I really wanted to ask you this question as a cinematographer. You see the advancement of the technology, the state of the industry. Now, as a cinematographer, you've worked with some of the towering streaming giants like Disney Plus and like Netflix and Amazon Prime. What do you see the trajectory of cinema being, both for filmmaking and for distribution?
Well, I think, if anything, this pandemic has taught us that, look at us. We're all on a Zoom call right now, looking at each other's faces, which is a lot better than just a phone call. But, it's all this virtual. Everything is from a distance. And, I think that the pandemic really forced us out of the cinemas. They forced us into our homes, and I mean, I have 3 generations in my home right now. I have my kids, I have us, Lydia and myself, and I have my mom and her dad. Wow. So they all moved in permanently. So we're all here in a packed house with the kids and all of them, sheltering in place because they're 86 and 81.
Sure.
So, we have to create our own bubble. Right. So, I think that the streaming services are going to continue to thrive. Mm-hmm. And I think that there is, and they should not be shamed because we're delivering content and that never would have had a venue.
Exactly.
Sure.
And there's a lot of filmmakers out there that have this amazing voice that have never had a venue to be exposed in this voice and for them to cry at the highest, to yell at the highest hill. This is what's so exciting for me because I'm like seeing documentaries and mockumentaries. Have you seen these new mockumentaries that are out on 2020? I mean, that shit would never have existed in cinema.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? And it's
Yeah.
fun, and it takes a whole different turn.
Yeah.
And
it takes the pressure off as filmmakers as well. I mean, as indie filmmakers, we're grateful to the streaming services to one degree. To another degree, we love the cinema, we respect its history, and we'd rather kind of maybe see a film there. But
you want to see a movie in the theater because you fuel off of each other's emotion. The person sitting next to you, the person behind you, 10 seats in front of you, when they laugh or, they jerk back. I mean, that's an experience that you cannot have in your home. And, I think that we have to do everything possible to keep the cinemas alive because,
absolutely,
I think that if anything, okay, remember when you would go to a Dodgers game or a baseball game or a basketball game? This is something that you didn't do on a daily or a weekly basis. This was something that, unless you had season tickets and all that stuff, I remember taking my kids to Dodgers games 3 or 4 times within a season. This is where cinema, I think, is going to start to play. After the pandemic lifts, it's going to be like going to a concert. Like if we're going to go see it, it's got to be that experience. And I think the movie theaters will then play into that as well with, you already started to see them bringing in the food and the drinks and all that stuff. I mean, we have this one out by us called Movie Studio Grill. And it's unbelievable. The seats are comfortable. The tray tables slide out. They whip shit in at your beck and call as long as you push the red button. I mean, it's like, that's a cool experience. It's like being at home, but you're being in a theater, and you get the experience
of both worlds.
People's emotions around you.
You get the best of both worlds.
The cinema will have to ebb and flow in a way that it's going to be more of a venue experience instead of just going to the movies weekly.
Sure. Michael, you had something. You had something.
As a cinematographer and also kind of as a technician that you were talking about earlier, what's your take or what's your impression of this movement towards virtual production like we're seeing on The Mandalorian, where everything's basically interior, but we're using high quality LED walls and things like that to create whatever environment people can imagine? What's kind of your take on that from the cinematography standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, the virtual walls and everything are, I mean, it's otherworldly cool, and you see how well, once you all of a sudden have something that large, it starts to light itself, right? The screen is able to, light a lot. And then you're augmenting that. There was a great thing that Eric Messerschmidt shared on his Instagram, that he was shot all this stuff on the new Lincoln Navigator or whatever. He did it all with these massive LED virtual walls like they did The Mandalorian, and the car looks like it's there, and it's all in a TV studio in New York, in Manhattan. So it's like that is awesome. But there's something about me as a, I think it's my upbringing, and my son has it as well, where I'm very tactile. I like to touch shit. I like to move stuff. I like to, grab the gooseneck light and finagle it around and do this. I'm not a person that likes this. It's like, even when I did Terminator Salvation and we had tons of blue screen work in there, the movie never felt like a CGI film. It felt very gritty and raw, and you felt like the dust and shit was on top of you. Well, that's because when that big robot rose up to stand in front of the sun, I blew 7 guns of cannons that went up and took the sun out, so that became his shadow. It's like, and then all the shit started raining down on him from all the explosions and cork and debris and everything. This is how you make CGI look
Real.
like real. And I felt that, you know, Mandalorian's doing a very good job, but it still lacks that gauze factor. It's just too clean for me. So, you know, I'm always still a cinematographer that likes to get his hands dirty, grab the lights, get in there with the camera, get on the ground.
Throw some dirt on that actor.
Yeah.
Shane, I have to ask you, this is kind of the final question before we move on to our final segment. You've gone on record saying, for so much so that it's your mission and vision for the Hurlbut Academy. Being a filmmaker isn't easy. It's not a career. It's a lifestyle. It's not something you're interested in. It's something you're obsessed with. I wanna tailor that around the question of, do you have any advice for up and coming filmmakers or any filmmakers that want the same kind of trajectory? Maybe as a cinematographer, as a director, as a writer. What does that mean? What does it? It's a lifestyle mean? I think we might know, but what does that mean to you?
Resilience. You have to be so resilient. And I find that a lot of the young filmmakers coming up don't have alligator skin. And, you know, unfortunately, you know, it's our industry is definitely turning. You know, we've had the Me Too movement and all these things, but still, when you're in the thick of it, you have to have resilience. You have to understand that there's going to be some times when people are yelling and screaming and everything, and you got to be all right with it. You got to just roll with it. You got, like, these are things that creatives are all over the map. And you know, I feel that we're pinching our subculture into this very corporate world where I still want to be an artist, and I still want to be, you know, continue to grow as an artist. And I find that, you know, the reason I say that in those lines on the Hurlbut Academy is because if you're signing up, you got to be all in. This is not something, you know, where I go up and I see these young technicians coming into the field. They're just doing it to make money. They're not doing it because they love what they do. They go back to their house every day and they come in and they turn a light on and they move it around. They're not filmmakers. And that's what I see as the big push that I'm seeing that I never saw in this business 5 years ago. So as all these huge tax incentives of you know, Atlanta and you know, New Orleans and all these places, Vancouver, where all the productions start racing into a place that has 5 or 6 crews deep, and now they need 50 deep. They're ripping people off of Manitoba and Saskatchewan oil dikes and rigs and out of the fields that they were just plowing fields, and now they're turning lights on. So it's like, that's awesome, but you gotta being a filmmaker is you gotta understand that grit and that resilience. It's not a 9 to 5 job. It's not corporate. You gotta love it. You gotta breathe it. And if you don't have it, you're going to die. And that's the way I feel. If I can't shoot, if I can't, you know, talk to all of you about art and mentor and inspire all of you know, my Hurlbut Academy members and followers on Instagram and all this stuff, you know, I'm not going to be alive. It's something that you have to. Without it, you're no one. And that's really what the film industry has to be. And like I say, it's all in. There's no, you know,
backup plan.
There's no pretty good. There's no good enough. It has to be great.
Yes.
Those are strong words.
That's fantastic advice. Fantastic advice, Shane.
I hate to do this, guys, but it's come to the end of the show where we like to leave our audience with a little word trivia and put a guest in the hot seat with Michael DeLaos. Good word of the day.
Word of the day. So we have a word of the day segment that we like to use with our guests as communicators, filmmakers, artists, all the like. I like to offer a word of the day, and you can see if you know the definition, and it's just to kind of expand our vocabulary and have fun with it.
No pressure.
Shane, your word to see if you can define is coterie. Do you know the definition of coterie?
coterie.
Yes.
Give us a hint, Nilo.
No, let's see, coterie.
The synonym of this word can actually be found in Shane Hurlbut's Academy.
Ooh.
Oh man, that was in my. Oh God,
Michael.
I
got some
stab
shade there.
myself right now. Coterie. Oh my God, yes, that was in our glossary that I put together. Oh God.
No pressure.
No pressure.
I'm sorry, you got me on that
all
one.
right.
What is that one, Michael?
Okay, coterie is a small group of people with shared interest or taste, and some of the synonyms to this word are clique, crowd, and inner circle, much like the Shane
Oh
inner
wow.
circle. Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
There you go. I mean, I just wanted to use this word because I think, like, watching your videos and seeing what you guys put together to kind of help inspire. I mean, you have your inner circle, but I think it's inspiring other people's inner circle, like our inner circle and the people that we kind of come to in our community. And it's just really nice to see that passion, science, technique, all this stuff can come together and just make a great filmmaking community. I mean, we're so excited that we got to talk to you and just excited to see your work and how other people's works are growing, and because of all the people you're inspiring. So yeah, thank you for being on. Those are my words of the day. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank
Shane.
you so much. That's very kind. I really appreciate you all having me on this one. Great questions. Telling stories of days of yore, as well as all the stuff that's current, and trying to. I mean, I see that it's my responsibility as a cinematographer. I had amazing mentors when I was coming up the ladder. They really shaped the way that I have become a cinematographer. And I thought, why not give back by the thousands, share this knowledge as much as possible, because sharing knowledge is power. And as much as you give, I get so much back in return. And it's not just the accolades and saying, oh my God, this is amazing. It's like, it's sharing knowledge. It's like people truly, saying, Shane, have you tried this? Because when I did this, and I'm like, oh my God, I've never tried that. Let me try that. This is when you share, you get things back in return. And I just try to be very open and very positive, I'm working with the director of Act of Valor. He honed the phrase positronics. And so that's something that I always try to do every day. When people, because this is my thing I'll leave you with. And it's something that you want to always try and do. And it sets the tone for your set. Is every day people will come in and they'll say, hey, Shane, how you doing? There's only one response: frickin' awesome. Every day, no matter what. How are you doing today? Frickin' awesome. Frickin' fantastic. I mean, it's like, and they're like, geez, well, that's really good. I got to be frickin' fantastic.
Exactly.
Too. And it starts to set the tone throughout the set.
That's beautiful.
And that positive nature has people, they'll do whatever possible in their soul to take that hill and to be there for you. And it's something that you always want to practice.
That's amazing advice, Shane. We want to thank you for your time. I think based on what we promised you went over, and we're grateful for that, because we know your time is precious. So thank you for that. Thank you for your time. Rest assured that if you ever come to Texas or the New Mexico area or anywhere, you have a crew here. Tower Productions is at your service.
Good food over here, man. Mexican.
All right, awesome. I would love that. All right, guys, thank you so much. It was great seeing you all, and thank you.
I'll just go ahead and sign off here. That about does it for these towering filmmakers. We had the great Shane Hurlbut give us, wealth of knowledge of his experience as a cinematographer and a filmmaker. Go ahead and check out The Hurlbut Academy, you can find his videos on YouTube as well as on his website, thehurlbutacademy.com. Check out the 2 newest films that he has back in 2020, which was Holidate, which is a very great rom-com on Netflix, and you also have Safety on Disney Plus, a very awesome heart-filled sports film. So make sure and check out his work, and he's got a ton of stuff coming out as well. So thank you so much. Thank you for listening in. Again, you can find this podcast on all major podcasting platforms, and if you want to check out The View, make sure to check out our Facebook and YouTube on Tower Productions. Thank you, Shane, again for being on. Thank you, filmmakers, for tuning in with us. We love you guys. Keep making your films. We're here for you. Thank you.
Love you guys.